I am 74 years old. For 38 years, I was a detective. I solved over 1,000 cases, murders, missing people, crimes nobody else could crack. They called me the best in the department. I had a wall full of commendations, a drawer full of thank you letters from strangers I saved, but I never solved the case that mattered most, my own life. I thought I had time. I always thought I had time. There was always one more case, one more late night, one more phone call at 2 a.m. that I answered before I answered my own son. I was good at finding the truth in other people's lives. I just never looked for it in mine. Now I sit in this house, quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that used to scare me on a stakeout. Now it just sits with me every single day. My son doesn't call much anymore. My wife passed 4 years ago. We were married, but some years I wasn't really there. I was there in the house, not in the marriage. I was wrong. I thought solving crimes meant I understood people. I understood strangers. I understood killers, liars, victims, witnesses. I read rooms for a living, but I could not read the silence growing in my own home. There's a file I never closed. It's not in any cabinet at the station. It's the file on my own family, and there's no evidence left to collect, no witnesses left to question. Later never came. I want to tell you what happened, not the case files, the real one, the one nobody put my name on, because somewhere in this story you might see yourself. And if you do, please don't make my mistake. Let me take you back. 1985. I was 26 years old, fresh on the force, full of fire. I wanted to matter. I wanted to be the man who put the bad guys away. I wanted a legacy. My wife, Margaret, was 24 then. We had just had our son, David. I remember holding him in the hospital and promising him I would always be there. I meant it, I really did. But the job doesn't care what you promise at midnight in a hospital room. The calls came at all hours. A body found by the river, a missing teenager, a robbery gone wrong, and every time, I left. I told myself it was just this once, just this case, just this week. Margaret used to keep dinner warm for me, for years. She never said much about it at first. She was patient. She believed I would slow down eventually. David's first steps, I missed. I was working a case. His first day of school, I missed. There was a break in an investigation. His 10th birthday, I was there, but my mind was at the station, running through suspects. I told myself this was sacrifice. I told myself this was what good men do: provide, protect, serve. I thought the medals and the case closures were proof I was doing it right. But there were cracks, small ones at first. Margaret stopped asking when I'd be home. She just stopped asking. David stopped running to the door when I walked in. He just looked up, then looked back down at whatever he was doing. I noticed. I felt it. But I told myself, later. I'll fix this later. Once this case is closed. Once I make detective. Once I get that promotion. I thought I had time. I was so good at reading suspects, reading lies, reading fear in a stranger's eyes during an interrogation. But I couldn't read the look in my own son's eyes when he stopped expecting me to show up. There was one night. David was maybe 12. He had a school play. He told me weeks in advance. I wrote it down. I promised him. A call came in. A child had gone missing 3 towns over. I told myself, this is more important. Someone's life is at stake. I missed the play. I told myself I'd make it up to him. I always told myself that the missing child case from that night, we found her, alive. 3 days later, scared but safe. Her parents cried and hugged me at the station. They called me a hero. The newspaper ran my photo. I went home that night, expecting David to understand, expecting him to be proud of me. He wasn't in his room. Margaret said he didn't want to talk to me. He was 12 years old, and he had already learned not to expect me. That was the first crack I could not explain away. But I still didn't change. Not really. I told myself this was just one bad week. The job got easier to blame than myself. Years passed like that. David grew up mostly without me in the room, even when I was in the room. He went to college. He called less. He visited less. I told myself that's just what grown children do. I was wrong. Then 4 years ago, Margaret got sick. Cancer. Fast. Too fast. For the first time in our marriage, I didn't take the calls. I sat by her bed. I held her hand. I finally showed up. 30 years too late. In her last weeks, she didn't yell at me. She didn't blame me. That would have almost been easier. Instead, one night, very quietly, she said, "I waited a long time for you to come home. I'm glad you're here now." That sentence broke something in me that no crime scene ever did. She wasn't angry. She was just tired. Tired of waiting. And now there was no more later for her to wait for. She passed 3 weeks after that conversation. At her funeral, David stood beside me. He didn't cry the way I expected. He just looked distant, like he was watching a stranger bury his mother. After the funeral, he hugged me, said goodbye, and got in his car. He didn't say when he'd visit again. And I realized I had done to him exactly what the job had done to me. I had become absence. I had become the empty chair. I solved 1,000 cases. I found 1,000 truths for 1,000 strangers, and I never once looked hard enough at the truth sitting across my own dinner table. Later never came. Not for Margaret. And maybe not for David and me either, unless something changes. Here is what I believed for almost 40 years. I believed that being needed was the same as being present. I believed that providing was the same as loving. I believed that if I worked hard enough, protected enough strangers, solved enough cases, it would somehow add up to being a good husband, a good father. I was wrong. Being needed is not the same as being present. You can be needed by the whole world and still be a stranger in your own home. I thought love was something you proved through sacrifice, through long nights and hard work and medals on a wall. But love isn't proven in case files. Love is proven in Tuesday afternoons, in school plays, in dinners that don't go cold, in simply being there when nothing important is happening at all. I was so busy chasing the big moments, the headlines, the commendations, the lives I saved, that I missed the small moments. And it's the small moments that build a life, not the headlines. Here's the truth. Nobody tells you when you're young and chasing purpose. The world will always hand you a reason to leave the room. There will always be another case, another deadline, another emergency, another fire to put out. The job will never run out of reasons. But your family only gets so many ordinary days with you. And those ordinary days don't wait. They don't get rescheduled. They don't come back. I thought I had time. I was wrong. Later never came. This isn't really a story about being a detective. It's a story about anyone who keeps choosing the urgent thing over the important thing. The job over the dinner table. The phone call over the bedtime story. The next case over the conversation that's right in front of you. You can spend your whole life solving everyone else's problems and still leave the most important one unsolved. The people who were right there, waiting for you to simply show up. Don't make my mistake. So here is what I want to say to you. Not as a detective, just as an old man who knows what it costs to wait too long. If you have someone waiting for you right now, a child, a partner, a parent, a friend, stop reading this and go to them. Not tomorrow. Not after this one last thing you have to finish. Now. I know you think you have time. I thought that too. For almost 40 years, I thought that too. You don't know which ordinary Tuesday is the last one. You don't know which school play, which dinner, which quiet evening on the couch is the one you'll spend the rest of your life wishing you hadn't missed. I was the best at finding the truth in other people's lives, and the truth I missed in my own is the simplest one there is. People don't remember what you provided. They remember whether you were there. Margaret didn't ask for medals. She asked for me to come home. David didn't need a hero. He needed a father in the room. I thought I had time. I was wrong. Later never came. So don't make my mistake. Put down the phone. Close the laptop. Walk into the next room and say the thing you've been meaning to say. Show up for the ordinary Tuesday. Because one day, it won't be ordinary anymore. It will be the last one. I solved 1,000 crimes in my life. But the one I never solved is the one that matters most now, sitting alone in this quiet house. Don't wait until the house goes quiet to understand what mattered. Go home while you still can.